All right. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Bethlehem Zoning Board. My name is Pete Schneck, and I'll be serving as chairman today. Just real quick, I'd like to announce that we did have an executive meeting today at 5:45 to discuss ongoing litigation. Serving tonight, to my left is Dr. Paige Van Wart, Sharon Wiles Young, and Danielle Joseph. Our zoning officer tonight and secretary is Dave Taylor. Our solicitor tonight is attorney Eric Schock. And our stenographer tonight is Moira Evans. If at this time, if anybody plans to speak tonight, I'd like you to stand in the audience and take testimony.
Take the oath.
Oh, take the oath. I'm sorry.
Raise your right hands, please. You do swear or affirm that the testimony which you shall give in the matter now before this board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You do so swear or affirm?
All right. The first case up tonight is 606 Carlton Avenue.
Okay, yeah. Two preliminary items. Where are the sheets, Dave?
Across the front of the.
Okay. Craig, you're going to do me a favor and put the sheets over. Thanks, because you guys are at that table. So there are sign-in sheets, and if you sign, then you will get a copy of the decision if you put your address down. So, and there's one sheet for each case. So sign if you're interested, and if you're a party, you will get it anyway. But if you are not a party and want a copy, you can sign. And then the second announcement I wanted to make is the board has 4 members. So I just want the applicants to know 2 to 2 is not means that your application is denied. The board currently consists only of 4 members, so there is no set time when I would be able to offer anybody a hearing with 5 members. But if you proceed, we will presume you are acceptable with proceeding with 4 persons. Okay. Okay.
First hearing, 606 Carlton Avenue, the appeal of Albert and Denise Maffa on behalf of Stella Buys Properties LLC for a use variance to permit the creation of a new student housing unit for 3 occupants proposed as regulated by the Article 1327 of the zoning ordinance outside of the student housing overlay district. Section 1327.01C, 1325.06, and all associated variances, special exceptions, and interpretations.
Okay. And then just one other item. In an instance, just procedure-wise, in an instance where someone other than the applicant is represented by counsel, we typically, so everyone knows, we will move to questions from the board, then to counsel for another interested party or objector, and then we would go to the audience after that. So in this case, Mr. Deschler, I presume you're entering your appearance on behalf of the city?
Yes, Matthew Deschler for the City of Bethlehem.
Okay, so in this instance, we will go board, Mr. Deschler, and then anyone from the audience.
All right. When was the property posted?
Property was posted a week ago, and I do have a photo of that posted, and I did email that to Dave Taylor as well.
Yeah, I can confirm that the property was posted last Wednesday.
That's fine.
All right. You may proceed.
I don't know if you had a chance to read my brief bio that I wrote about my company, my wife and I. I'm just going to go over it.
Could you give your name
Sure.
and address for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Albert J. Maffa, Jr. I reside at 5481 Melissa Court in Pipersville, Pennsylvania, 18947.
Thank you.
So I'm here tonight with my wife, Denise. We're the owners of Stella Buys Properties. We recently purchased 606 Carlton Avenue on January 24th. I'm retired law enforcement. I'm a retired corrections officer. My wife is still a nurse. She's a nurse of 42 years. We've been married for 38 years. We've been in the real estate business. We found our parent company in 2008, which is Stella Properties. We owned a student rental at 618 Montclair for approximately 5 years and had an impeccable record with the city and our tenants. At no time was there any police activity or city violations against this property. We take pride in our properties, and we don't tolerate any violations of our leasing agreements. You could take a look at the packet. You can see from the packet that the property that we own is just outside of the student rental district. The map goes down on a straight line and then just kind of bypasses where our property is located. Currently, my neighbor, if you're looking at our property to the left, is 608 Carlton. That property is owned by Lehigh University, and that's a 3-bedroom house also that has student rentals there. My wife and I have also spent approximately $90,000 renovating this property, which was in great disrepair. We strictly screen all our tenants, and we ensure that they comply with all the lease agreements. I'm in all my properties at least once a month inspecting them to make sure that everything is, that they're complying with my lease. Now, I just recently found out that 600 Carlton, if you're looking at my property right there directly on the end, 600 Carlton is also owned by Lehigh University. Yep, that's the property right there. That's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath on the lower floor, and that's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath on the upper floor. So I'm just asking for you to look at this. We're a small business. We're the typical mom and pop operation. We've been in business since 2008. We're solid people. We do what we say. We follow all the regulations. I pulled all the permits. You can look right now, there's open permits on that property for the electrical and for the plumbing. And I do everything right by the book. I'm just asking you if you could give us a little bit of leeway there. There's the universities on both sides of me, and they have students in those properties as well.
Okay.
That's all I have. I'd like to hear your questions.
Questions from the board? Well, we have another crack at it after the city goes.
You can wait until Mr. Deschler goes if you'd like, figuring he may cover some of the stuff you want to ask. We can do that too.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah, well,
Okay. So then we'll switch up our order.
Thank you. So, Mr. Moffa, you said you purchased, when I say you, I guess it's Stella Buys Properties.
Yes, that's my LLC.
All right. So Stella purchased the property at 606 Carlton Avenue, January 24th, 2025, you said?
That's correct, Mr. Deschler.
What was the use of the property before you purchased it?
That was a rental property, and I was told by the realtor that it's been sitting empty since October of 2024.
So it was vacant when you
It's
purchased it?
vacant, yes, sir.
And you've undertaken the expense to rehabilitate the property, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And I think there are 3 bedrooms in the property?
That's correct. 3 bedrooms, all located on the second floor, 1 bathroom on the second floor as well.
And there's a kitchen too, I presume?
Yes, sir.
Is the building habitable at this point?
Not at this point because the kitchen, I have cabinets, and I have the plumbing needs to be finished, flooring, different things need to be finished. And the bathroom is not functional yet because I need the plumber needs to come in. It should be habitable by January 1st. That's my projection.
That was my follow-up question. Is your intent to make it habitable, correct?
Absolutely, sir.
Once it's habitable, is there anything that would prevent you from renting to 2 but not 3 college students?
Yes,
What would prevent you from doing that?
financially, for us to meet our financial, but you're talking about the building itself.
Correct, and that's fair enough. I get the profitability.
Right.
Aside from that, is there anything that would prevent you from leasing to 2 college students and not 3?
No, there's not.
Is there anything that would prevent you from leasing to a family consisting of a mother and father and their 2 children?
No, there would not be.
That's all I have.
Okay.
If I could address the board, I would prefer the rent to students, okay? Honestly, because I can get more rent to meet my needs, okay? And also, I like to have students. I prefer to use graduate students that I've had before. I get the parents to co-sign the leases, okay, with the students. We put together a terrific property. Going to spend about $90,000. Everything in that property is going to be brand new, okay? My 3 kids went away to school, and it was horrible at the properties that they had to live. Okay, they weren't in Bethlehem City, but it was horrible. Okay, we enjoy renting to students, and it's financially it helps us meet our mortgage on the property.
You said that I guess, surrounding properties is also student housing. Do you know how many bedrooms there are in each one of those? Or how many students are in each one of those?
I don't know how many students are there. I'm only up there when I'm working. I go in the building and I work myself, and I also have, people that I hire that are in there working with me.
But there's,
I really don't, to be honest with you, I really don't know how many students are in those buildings.
Okay.
But I know that 600 Carlton is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath downstairs and 2-bedroom, 1-bath upstairs.
My question is, if there's 3 students in the house and then the other Lehigh houses there, how much parking space do they have on Carlton? Is Carlton pretty full as it is right now?
It's really not. Every time I go there, there's always plenty of parking. There's always at least 4 or 5 spaces there to park when I go there.
Any other questions?
any other questions?
I may have missed this in the materials. Did you say how many students to whom you are proposing to rent? Is it exactly 3?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I wanna make sure. Gotcha. I thought that was the case, but I didn't know if I heard it.
Any other questions? Anybody from the audience? All right.
The city can put on a case now if it wishes. So do you have anything else testimony-wise to offer?
Not at this point.
Okay, so what we'll do, Mr. Deschler, if you agree, is I'll just mark the application and the attachments collectively as A1, and then there was no other exhibits.
Understood.
Okay? All right, so now, you're up.
I give a package for the board. Race sticker for the chair.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, my first witness, I will call Craig Pfeiffer.
Okay.
Mr. Pfeiffer, can you just state and spell your name, please?
Craig Donald Pfeiffer, CraigDonald Pfeffer.
Are you employed by the city of Bethlehem?
Yes,
How long have you been so employed?
today marks 6 years, 15 days.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You must love it. What's your current job title?
I am the Deputy Director of Planning and Zoning.
And what do you do in that capacity?
I currently oversee the Bureau as well as oversee the Subdivision Land Development Ordinance.
And were you hired as the Deputy Director of Planning and Zoning?
I was not. I was hired as the zoning officer.
And from when to when were you the zoning officer?
I began on April 8th of 2019, and I switched to the current position August 15th, 2022.
And as the city's zoning, and you were the zoning officer for the city.
Correct.
As the city zoning officer, what were your job duties?
Ostensibly to oversee the zoning ordinance.
And that included interpretation, enforcement of the ordinance.
Correct.
And starting in 2020, was there a debate in the city and the administration and the broader community about adopting a student housing overlay amendment?
Yes.
And that occur around 2020?
Correct.
What was the nature of those discussions?
Principally about where student housing should be permitted by right and where it should be not permitted.
What was the genesis, the motivation for having that debate in the city?
Mostly from residents who were complaining about character of neighborhood being diminished, property values being diminished, problems that they were having that were anywhere from just typical civil issues to criminal issues like people parking on sidewalks, etc.
And in terms of the student housing concerns, did these arise from students attending universities in the city, or colleges or universities?
Correct.
And which ones were those?
Principally Lehigh University.
And specifically, what were the concerns raised by residents about students from Lehigh living in their neighborhoods?
The complaints ranged anything from excessive noise, partying all night. I mentioned the cars parked on the sidewalks. There was public urination. There was vulgar and vulgar language issues.
And as a result of these concerns raised by residents in the neighborhoods around the university, did the city adopt a student housing overlay amendment?
Yes.
And if I show you what we've marked as City Exhibit 1, is this what I've referred to thus far as the student housing overlay amendment?
Correct.
And this was adopted. This is, you can see from the 1, 2, 3. Yes, the third page from the back of the exhibit, March 3rd, 2021. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I know there are a number of provisions in this ordinance, but chiefly speaking, just to summarize, what did this ordinance do?
So it created 2 areas within the South Side that would permit student housing by right. It also allowed for student housing in 3 other districts. That includes the CB, the CL, and the IR-R, where up to 3 students would be permitted, and then also allows for student housing with 2 students to be located in any housing unit permitted in any other district in the city.
And just if we look at the first page of the ordinance, City Exhibit 1, do we define student home?
We do.
Okay. And what's the definition? You could read it.
Thank you. 1302.127 student home subject to the maximum occupancy limit set forth in Article 1327.02. A dwelling unit occupied by 3 or more students aged 18 years or older, but not more than 5, who are not related to each other, and each of whom is enrolled at a college or university authorized to grant post-secondary degrees by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. A housing unit occupied by 1 or 2 students shall be treated the same as any other housing unit of the same housing type and shall not be considered a student home. To qualify as a student home, the dwelling unit shall not be the residence of the person not enrolled at a college or university authorized to grant post-secondary degrees by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. The term shall not regulate housing for college students within the institutional zoning district.
And that was a new definition in the zoning ordinance, correct?
Correct.
And in addition to adding a definition for student home, did the student home overlay amendment modify the definition of family?
Yes.
And can you describe the change in that definition?
Principally, it would allow up to 5 persons unrelated to live together. It now diminishes that to 4 who are not related.
In other words, prior to March of 2021, zoning ordinance had a definition of family that allowed for up to 5 unrelated individuals who operated a dwelling as a single household to be counted in the definition as family.
Correct.
And that would have allowed, say, up to 5 students living and operating as a single household in a dwelling to be considered a family, right?
Correct.
And as of the amendment in March of 2021, that was no longer the case, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, the definition of family is now written to exclude 2 or more persons occupying a dwelling unit which otherwise meets the definition of a student home, correct?
Correct.
And that remains the definition of family in our current zoning ordinance.
Correct.
And the definition of student housing or student home as reflected in City Exhibit 1 remains the definition of student home in our current ordinance.
Correct.
And just so I'm clear, I think you had said you could have 2 students in a dwelling as a student home. Just to clarify, if you have 2 students living together in a dwelling operating as a single household unit, is that by definition a student home?
Correct.
No. Is that if you have 2 students living in a single dwelling operating
Understood.
as a household, is that a student home?
It's viewed as whatever dwelling type is being used as a single family dwelling.
In other words, you could have 2 students, but only up to 2 students in a single family dwelling operating as a household unit, and they would count as a family, right?
That is correct.
Sorry.
No. My
Um,
apologies.
And the Student Housing Overlay Amendment in Section 3 of the ordinance, page 1, we set forth various purposes for adopting the student home overlay, correct?
Correct.
And that includes to recognize that housing of college students often causes different challenges than housing for other persons, to stabilize and protect neighborhoods throughout the city by providing for student housing while maintaining the supply of housing that is affordable to families, to promote the development of additional on-campus housing by colleges and universities within the institutional zoning district, to direct concentrations of housing of college students to locations proximate to a college and where public transit services are available, to minimize parking shortages and to reduce congestion. That's what it says, correct?
Verbatim.
And was adopting the student home overlay amendment of importance to the city?
Yes.
And does the city take enforcement of the amendment seriously?
Yes.
And in fact, on the city's website, and this is City Exhibit 2, do we provide information specifically on the student home overlay district?
Yes.
And on City Exhibit 2, it starts out by saying, and this is from the city's website, correct?
Correct.
It starts out by saying, in 2020, the city council approved the revision to Article 1327, and I'll pause, and that's the zoning ordinance, correct?
Correct.
1327 of the zoning ordinance relating to the student housing zoning district. The purpose of such changes would allow for continued economic stability, promote the development of additional on-campus housing, and to direct concentration of housing of college students to locations in close proximity to a college and or public transit while reducing the parking shortages and congestion. That's what it says, correct?
Verbatim.
And again, that's the purpose of the student home overlay amendment. Yes?
Correct.
And on the website, we have various links to resources that provide information about the student home overlay district, correct?
Correct.
And among those links are City Exhibit 3. This is a notice dated May 20th, 2021. If you were to click on the link for student housing notification letter as reflected in City Exhibit 2, do you get to City Exhibit 3?
Yes, you do.
And we're not going to read this again, but in the first paragraph of City Exhibit 3, do we see the same purpose for the student home overlay district reflected?
Yes.
And if we clicked on the link in City Exhibit 2 for student housing district Q&A, would you find yourself directed to City Exhibit 4, popular questions and answers?
Yes.
And the property at 606 Carlton Avenue, if we were to describe in zoning parlance what sort of property that is, what is it?
Single family attached dwelling.
And is that also referred to as a townhome or a row home?
Yes.
And I believe the definition, to summarize of that type of use, is 3 or more dwelling units in a row separated by party walls.
Correct.
And are you familiar with the property at 606 Carlton Avenue?
A little bit. Yes.
And we'll have another witness for that. But I want to show you what we marked as City Exhibit 5. Do you recognize this, or have you seen this before?
Yes. It's a housing inspection report.
And that's dated April 12th, 2021, correct?
It is.
And it was sent to or directed to Joseph Colosi.
Correct.
Is that the prior property owner of 606 Carlton Avenue, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, that is correct.
And what is the use identified on this housing inspection notice?
It's a single-family row home.
And a row home, is that another word for a townhome or a single-family attached dwelling?
That is correct.
And on the second page of that exhibit, again, for the existing use as well as for the proposed use, what does the inspection report indicate?
The same as previously stated, single-family row home.
And is that your signature or your a line for your approval dated June 10th, 2021?
And that is correct.
I would move the city exhibits 1 through 5 at this point. And I have no further questions for Mr. Piper.
Okay. Any objection to his 5 exhibits?
There's no objection.
They're
Just want to
admitted.
note, though, that
Hold on. Is this in reference to him moving the exhibits?
No.
Okay, then just hold on one second. So we'll admit city 1 through 5, and you have the right to cross-examine Mr. Pfeiffer now.
you realize, Mr. Pfeiffer, that it's 608 Carlton, that's your student housing there?
Yes,
You realize that there's 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit at 600 Carlton, that's also student housing.
I did not know that until you mentioned it this evening.
So you do acknowledge there's students living on that street?
Yes,
Okay. And we don't know how many students are living in each dwelling.
for all the dwellings on that street,
Dwellings of 608 and 600 Carlton, we don't know how many students are living there, correct?
I don't know that answer right now without looking
But
it
there
up.
could possibly be 3 students in those dwellings or more.
There could be.
But my point is that the university, they have properties there in student housing.
I
And That's
will-
what I'm asking. That's all I'm asking for is some type of concession there. Be able to do the same.
I would object that it's not a question.
Yeah. Do you have an answer? But although it is a statement as opposed to a question. Do you want to make a comment or no?
No.
Okay. You have to ask questions. Yeah.
I understand.
No
My
problem.
apology.
No, it's okay. Any other questions?
I have no other
Does
questions.
the board have any questions for Mr. Pfeiffer?
No questions.
I just have one question, which when I read the ordinance in preparation, which is likely irrelevant to this, but I think it was the confusion on the question. If a family shall not include an association of 2 or more persons occupying a dwelling unit which otherwise meets the definition of a student home, but then student home has to be 3 or more, how could you ever be a student home of 2 people?
It's correct. You're not. You're still, the use is still viewed as whatever the use
Okay,
of the dwelling type is. So if it's a single-family detached dwelling, we view it as a
Okay.
single-family detached dwelling.
it
If
just
it's
is
a-
odd that it says an association of 2 or more because it could never be 2 by definition.
I think as
Yeah.
Mr. Piper testified, the intent was if you have 2 students in a home, they can constitute a family. Once you get beyond that, they're no longer a family. It's a student
Yeah,
home.
well, that's 3 is beyond 2.
Right,
That's what I
right,
was
right,
saying.
right.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that was, it was just the way it was phrased was odd to me. I wanted to make sure I understood. I think I absolutely understand what the concept, even if I still wonder why it didn't say 3 or more, because you're not a student home in any instance with 2 people, right?
We will clarify that with our next revision to the ordinance.
I'm not trying to be difficult, but I wanted to make sure I was not missing an esoteric point. Okay.
I do have a quick question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So I just want to clear up a misconception by asking you, this current property is outside of the student housing overlay district.
Correct.
And the references to other students perhaps living in violation of the ordinance, that would be addressed by your code inspector. So if we were to find that there were other buildings outside of the student overlay district that had more than 2 students living in a single family dwelling, then that would be referred to the code officer who would then investigate and make sure that that was not allowed.
That is correct. And that assumes that house was not previously registered with us under the regulated rental unit
So-
program.
If this is true, they may be in violation of the zoning code.
They would either be in violation or they're legally non-conforming.
Thank you.
So you could have a block where you have 20 homes, there are 2 student rentals, and you're saying it's because they were formed before the ordinance.
I'm saying that if you have a home outside the
Mhm.
overlay and it has 3 to 5 students in it that were previously registered as a regulated rental and continued to meet the criteria of it being a student home, they're deemed legally non-conforming and have the right to continue to have that use.
I think that they would still be considered a family if they're if they're non-conforming outside the district, living as a single household unit up to 5.
Correct.
They had to have been-
I'm sorry.
They had to have been already registered with the city and functioning as a student housing unit prior to the adopting of the student housing overlay district in order to qualify as a non-conforming.
As a regulated rental, since there was no
Yeah.
definition before March
Okay.
2021.
Thank you.
Got it. Thanks. Any other questions from the board?
One more witness.
Okay.
Mr. Taylor. Sir, can you just state your name, please?
David William Taylor,
You spell it.
DAVIDWILLIAM
And are you employed by the city?
I am
What is your position?
a zoning officer.
And are the duties of zoning officer as we sit here, April 2025, the same as when Mr. Pfeiffer was a zoning officer back in 2022?
Yes,
And are you familiar with the property at 606 Carlton Avenue on the south side of the city here?
I have been by the site. Yes,
And is that property outside the student home overlay district?
yes, it is.
And if you look at City Exhibit 6, you have that before you?
I do.
And is this a printout from NC Pub or the Northampton County Tax Assessment Office?
It is.
And are you familiar with this exhibit?
I am.
And it reflects a lot acreage of, on the first page, 0.0176,
It does.
and reflects the current owner as Stella Buys Properties LLC, correct?
Correct.
And if we go back to the third page of the exhibit, towards the top, you see where it says total square feet living area?
Yes.
How many square feet of the living area do we have?
1,088 square feet.
And what's the building style?
The building style is single family residential.
How about on, yeah, and on
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
document?
I paused. Row house.
And on the next page, do we see the dimensions for the lot frontage and the lot depth?
Yes.
What's the front?
The frontage is 15 feet. The depth is 51 feet.
And on the next page of the exhibit, again, we see, I think Mr. Moffett testified to this, that the property was purchased by Stella Buys Properties from Joseph Colosio on January 27th, 2025, correct?
Correct.
I believe he might have said January 24th, 2025, but that's at least when it was recorded in the office of the Northampton County Recorder of Deeds, correct?
Correct.
And the final page of the exhibit, is this, I know you haven't been up in the air over the property, but is this a bird's eye view, an aerial view of the property at 606 Carlton Avenue and the surrounding properties?
It is.
And Exhibit 7, this is a single page exhibit, a photograph. Is this a photograph of the property at 606 Carlton Avenue?
It is.
Can you identify on the photograph which property is 606 Carlton Avenue? There are two sets of doors, sort of to the left, sorry, to the right of center of the photograph. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay.
It's
Of those two sets of doors, which one is the door for 606 Carlton Avenue?
the door to the right.
And as a zoning officer, it's your responsibility and duty to classify uses in the city, correct?
Correct.
This building here at 606 Carlton Avenue, I know Mr. Pfeiffer had testified to it, but what use do we describe it as in the city?
It would meet the definition of a single-family attached dwelling, also known as a townhouse or a row home.
And you've been here for Mr. Pfeiffer's testimony, correct?
Yes,
And are you in agreement that the definition of family that we utilize now in our current zoning ordinance does not include the definition of student home?
correct.
And as to the property at 608 Carlton Avenue, that's to the immediate left of 606, correct?
Correct.
Have you had the opportunity to consult any records in the city to determine whether 608 Carlton Avenue was used as a student home?
Yes, I did. It exists. It currently exists as a legal nonconformity, meaning it was operating that way prior, legally recognized that way prior to the adoption of this ordinance, of the student housing ordinance.
Meaning it had been operating at 608 Carlton Avenue, that property had been operating as a student home or at least a regulated rental prior to March of 2021 when the ordinance was adopted, yes?
Correct.
And Mr. Taylor, looking at City Exhibit 7, the street view of the property, looking at the aerial overhead in City Exhibit 6, and reviewing the dimensions of the property, is there anything irregular or unusual about the lot or the building situated on the lot at 606 Carlton Avenue?
Not for the neighborhood, no.
And is there any reason why the building at 606 Carlton Avenue could not be used as a single-family attached dwelling under the zoning ordinance?
No.
That's all I have. I would move the admission of City Exhibit 6 and 7.
Oh, any objection?
No objection.
Thanks. Board have any questions for Mr. Taylor? I just have
Oh.
one. Then, if it's
Go ahead.
okay. In a property that's located within the student house overlay, is a single-family attached dwelling a permitted dwelling type in which you can have a student home?
Yes.
Okay, so the problem here is solely it's outside of the district.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions or anybody from the audience? All right.
You have anything else to add?
The only thing I would have to add, 600 Carlton Avenue on the end, does that fall under the legally non-conforming zoning regulation?
Yeah, you know what? I should have, I didn't know if you had a question. We'll reopen him to cross-examination. That's a legitimate question.
I had not had the opportunity to look at that specific property, so I don't know.
I think you mentioned 608 in your application.
Yes, yeah, I just recently found out about
Sure.
600 Carlton.
I'm assuming that's why people were aware of that one. That it? Okay,
I don't have any further questions.
okay.
All right.
Do you want to say anything, Mr. Deschler, or briefly?
As a closing argument?
Yeah.
Sure, thank you. So, look, obviously, the city appreciates anyone who wants to come here and invest in our properties. And the reason why we spent some time tonight on the development of the student home overlay district is to emphasize the importance of upholding the integrity of that district. And I think you've heard from Mr. Pfeiffer about the reasons why that district came about. We're proud to have two first-class universities now, both Moravian and Lehigh, in the city. But there's also a need to balance the interests of students with those people living, making their homes and their lives and raising their families in these neighborhoods. So a balance was struck where we are confining student homes in the overlay, and not just in the overlay, they're allowed in other districts as well by right, but specifically with regard to the overlay, there was a reason, I think a well-founded one, for carving out certain areas on the south side as places where you could put student homes. Now, the fact that Stella's property is, and I don't think it's disputed, it's close to where the line is drawn, that can't be a basis for granting a variance. I think it's important to note that this is a use variance. It's not a dimensional variance where the board may apply a slightly relaxed standard where you could consider things like the profitability of the proposed use in granting a variance. This is not like where he slightly exceeds the impervious cover limit or coverage limit, where there's a slight encroachment on a setback, where the relief requested is one of degree, not in kind. It may seem that way because we're talking about numbers, where if we just had 2 students, it would be a single family dwelling. He would have a family there of 2 college students under the zoning ordinance. But by increasing it from 2 to 3, we're not just increasing the use in degree, but we're changing the kind of use, because once you go from 2 to 3, you move from a family to a student home. And that's the problem. If we were to allow a variance, so it's a use variance, it receives the strictest kind of review by the board. It's the higher of the 2 burdens, dimensional versus use. If we were to allow this property to be used as a student home just because there were nearby student homes, or even though if the overlay district was nearby, you get in a situation where any person could say, well, now my neighbor has a variance for a student home. Now I live next to him. Why can't I have that? And so on and so forth. And you create a kind of domino effect where you no longer have straight, clean, orderly, rational lines for a district, but you have jagged edges or fuzzy edges where you've entirely eroded the integrity of the district. You've entirely eliminated the purpose of preserving truly residential properties for long-standing residents of the city to enjoy as their homes, as their permanent homes. The issue of student homes has been kind of ongoing for decades now. I looked up a case when I was just reviewing this today, Farley versus the Zoning Hearing Board of Lower Marion Township. It's cited as 636 Atlantic City 1232. This was a challenge actually to the legality of a student housing overlay district or student housing district where, during the debate on the adoption of the ordinance there, the court talks about neighbors of student homes testified how the residential character of their neighborhood has diminished and student homes have located in their neighborhoods, giving way to a dormitory-like atmosphere. Specifically, neighbors testified about excessive noise from radios, stereos, and parties that last through the early morning hours, cars parked on sidewalks which force neighborhood children to walk or ride their bicycles in the street in order to pass student homes, constant traffic and parking congestion, trash left on the premises of student houses, as well as scattered on neighbors' properties, and public urination. One neighbor also testified that his property has lost value since student housing proliferated on his street. It talks about how the township, in that case, it was a township, had a legitimate purpose of preventing oversaturation of areas within the township with student homes in an attempt to preserve the residential character and integrity of those communities. And one of the factors in granting variance relief is that the variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, nor be detrimental to the public welfare. Now, it's the applicant's burden to meet every single one of the 5 variance factors. It's not the city's burden. But I think if you look at the evidence that the city has presented today, the importance of maintaining the integrity of the zoning district here, I think there is an adverse impact if we allow this even bit by bit to be eroded. In terms of the other factors, there's not a hardship. Again, it's a use variance. Once the applicant says, I can use the property for 2 students, which is a family, or for mom and dad and 2 kids, another use as a single family attached dwelling, that is a fatal, that's a statement that fatally undermines his request for the variance, because it's testimony that you can use the property in strict conformity with the zoning district. So there is no hardship. There's nothing irregular about this lot or this building that would entitle him to the relief. The relief is not the minimal necessary to afford the applicant relief to use his property, because he can use the property as a single family attached dwelling with a family in it, as we define family under the zoning ordinance. So there hasn't been, the applicant has not met its burden to prove the 5 variance factors. Again, it's not our burden, it's the applicant's burden. The burden has not been met here by any stretch. So I would ask the board to deny the variance. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll go off the record into executive session.
Phones are back.
All right, I'd like to go back on the record. A board member would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move to deny the variance.
Second.
Mr. Schneck,
Yes.
Dr. Van Wert,
Yes.
Ms. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Wiles Young.
Yes.
Okay,
Motion carries for
4-0. So you'll get a written decision in the mail within 45 days from tonight. Okay,
So the decision was 4-0 to deny the variance.
a yes to deny means denied.
Deny.
Yes, correct.
That's as clear as the ordinance is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you all for your time and your consideration.
Good luck.
All right, the next case is 241 East Market Street.
241 East Market Street, the appeal of Corey Campbell on behalf of Campbell Real Estate Holdings LLC for dimensional variances to permit converting an existing garage attached to a previously approved 2-bedroom, 2.5-story dwelling unit into 2 additional dwellings, creating a multifamily dwelling defined as 3 or more dwelling units. 20-foot rear yard setback, 4-foot existing, 15-foot side yard setback required. I apologize. 20-foot rear yard setback required, a 4-foot setback is existing. A 15-foot side yard setback is required, a 10-foot setback is existing. Zoning ordinance sections 1306-01A4, 1325-06, and all associated variances, special exceptions, and interpretations.
Mr. Pipparotto, you were here when I said, and I know you certainly can count.
Yes.
You're okay with the 4 board members.
Yes, my client has
correct?
indicated that that is acceptable to proceed.
Thank
Thank
you. And then can I just have, between the two of you, one clarification for the board, because the application and the ad didn't match. So can you just explain how that transpired? Because I think we're actually here for lesser relief
We
than
are.
might
We
have been
are.
originally.
Do you feel comfortable, David, or would you like me to do it?
I'll let you go
Yeah,
ahead.
so originally, the application is to convert the 3-car garage into 2 units. And so the application was for essentially a 2-unit dwelling. After David took a look at it, because the garage is attached to a 2-story structure that already has a unit in it, if we convert the garage to 2 additional units, that creates 3 units, which kicks it into a multifamily dwelling. Essentially, that's what it is. It's permitted by right use, and it essentially resulted in less dimensional relief that the applicant needs this evening.
Okay, so do we agree the relief you need as listed in the ad is the actual relief, even though it differs from the original application?
That is correct. And David
Okay.
and I exchanged email correspondence, which I think he provided to the board to
Yeah.
indicate that we did in fact amend the application.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah, in case I saw that, I just want to make sure everybody was on the same page and we
Thank you,
still
Eric.
were where we
Yes,
were.
Appreciate
Thanks.
that.
And can you confirm when the property was posted?
Yes, it was posted on April 16th of 2025.
Taylor did it himself.
I can confirm
Mr.
that.
Taylor did it himself. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
All right, you can proceed.
Very good. Corey, would you state your name and please spell your first and last name for the court stenographer?
Corey Campbell, CORYCIMPBELL.
And Corey, it's my understanding that the property is owned by an entity that's known as Campbell Real Estate Holdings LLC. Is that correct?
Correct.
And are you a member owner of that limited liability company?
I am.
And is that a Pennsylvania limited liability company?
It is.
And the property that is the subject of tonight's hearing is known as 241 East Market Street. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
And that property is located in the RT, or the High Density Residential Zoning District of the City of Bethlehem?
Correct.
Right. And you would agree with me that a multifamily dwelling is a permitted by right use in the RT district?
Yes.
What I'd like to do is quickly go through our exhibit package. So the board members and Eric, would you like to follow through? Corey, I'm going to show you first what I've marked as applicant's exhibit A, and that's the tax assessment information from the Northampton County Tax Assessment Office. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And it indicates at the very top left-hand side of the page that Campbell Real Estate Holdings LLC is the owner of that property. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
When you go down to about the middle of the page, it indicates land use code of 120, but it indicates it's a 2 to 4 family residential. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you go further down on the left-hand side under living units, there is a number 4. Do you see that?
I do.
And so on this property, and we'll go through this with the board, but on this property, currently there are 4 residential units. Is that correct?
There are.
If we go to the second page of that exhibit, it indicates about 1/3 of the way down under year built that this property was constructed somewhere in the area of 1890. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And again, just below that, it is indicated to be a 2 to 4 family residential dwelling, and we've acknowledged to the board that there are currently 4 units at this location. Is that correct?
Yes.
The last page is the tax assessment map and is outlined in red. And would you agree that that is the property upon which the structure that we are here for this evening is located?
Yes.
If we go to Exhibit B, I just wanted to review with you the zoning officer's determination, and I know Attorney Schock has asked us questions regarding that. But if you look at the first page of the April 14th, 2025 memorandum to the Zoning Hearing Board, I believe it clarifies that the application tonight is for a multifamily dwelling. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Taylor has indicated that there's certain dimensional relief that is being requested. I think he read the ad, but essentially there's a 20-foot rear yard setback required, and we are proposing 4 feet. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there is a 15 feet side yard setback required, and we are proposing 10 feet. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes.
If we go to the second page of that memorandum, I just want to briefly review with you some of the findings that Mr. Taylor found in the records of the city of Bethlehem. And the first one is a 2004 application which resulted in the grant of a special exception by the Zoning Hearing Board to convert the existing structure in Carriage House into 3 dwelling units. Do you understand that to have been the case in 2004?
Yes, and that was before we owned it.
Right. And when, in fact, did Campbell Real Estate Holdings purchase the property, to the best of your knowledge?
2018.
All right.
Can you speak into the microphone? You're not. You're doing fine.
Check.
And I can hear you. I just
You hear me?
fading out a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. And so Campbell purchased, the entity purchased it in 2018. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the second page of Mr. Taylor's memorandum indicates that there was another application in 2018, which resulted in the garage building in the northwest corner of the property was converted into an additional dwelling unit, now resulting in 4 total dwelling units on the property. Is that correct?
Correct.
Were you and your entity the applicants in that 2018 application?
We were.
And did you receive permission from the Zoning Hearing Board to convert that structure into 1 additional unit?
We did.
At the very bottom of the second page of Mr. Taylor's memorandum, it indicates that the current application seeks to replace the 3 bays attached to dwelling number 4 with 2 additional dwellings, resulting in 6 dwellings overall on the parcel. Is that what our application is for this evening?
It is.
Exhibit C are the 2004 and 2018 decisions of the Bethlehem Zoning Hearing Board. I only added them in the event that the Zoning Hearing Board members want to refer to them. I won't go through with them with the applicant because the relief was granted as indicated in Mr. Taylor's memorandum. Corey, I'd like to show you what I've marked as Exhibit D, which is the plot plan for this property. And why don't we start by looking from the bottom of the page from East Market Street and then looking, which really would be in a northerly direction, correct?
Yes.
Right. So there's a structure that's marked as existing house. Do you see that?
I do.
And is that the house that fronts on East Market Street?
It is.
And is that the dwelling that is known as 241 East Market Street?
It is.
And is that dwelling part of the 2004 Zoning Hearing Board decision that converted that home into 1 rental unit? That part of the structure into 1 rental unit?
No, that was the existing house.
Yes, the existing house was converted into 1 rental unit, correct? Because the area that says existing 1-bedroom apartment to the rear of that is the second unit of
Correct.
that
Yes.
building, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So that the board
Yeah.
members are clear, because we want to go through each unit. what is known as the EXIST period house, there is one family living in that house, and that is one unit, is it not?
Correct.
To the rear of that, going towards Walnut Street, there is a square essentially that says EXIST period one bedroom apartment. That would be the second dwelling unit, correct?
Correct.
And if we look to the top of the photo, the picture, to the right-hand side, there is an existing carriage house, and that is a third dwelling unit, correct?
Correct.
And those three dwelling units were the subject of the 2004 zoning hearing board approval that permitted the 3 units by special exception.
Correct.
All right. In 2018, you and your family came before the zoning hearing board and requested permission that the existing loft house be utilized as a residential dwelling unit. Is that correct?
Well, it was a garage that we converted into a loft house, but yes.
All right. So it was not a residential dwelling prior to your application, but based on the approval of the zoning hearing board, that now houses a 4th dwelling unit on the property. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then there is an area to the left of that that is noted as the existing garage. And is that the subject of tonight's application?
It is.
Now, before we go through that, I want to go through a few more things on the site plan, if you don't mind. To have 6 dwelling units on the property, there is a requirement in the ordinance of 1.5 parking spaces. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And therefore, the ordinance would require 9 parking spaces for this property if, in fact, the zoning hearing board granted the relief tonight for a total of 6 units.
Correct.
How many parking spaces are provided?
We have 10.
All right, so let's go through those. If we look between the area of the existing house and where the carriage house and garage are located, there's an area that's identified as existing parking lot paved. Would you indicate to the board how many parking spaces are located in that parking area?
There are 5 on the right and 4 on the left, and attached or right next to the existing garage, there's the 10th spot.
All right. So in the parking lot itself, there are 9 spaces, which is compliant with the ordinance for 6 dwelling units, correct?
Correct.
And there is a 10th spot that is located just to the side. And as we're looking at the picture, to the left-hand side of the existing garage, which is the subject of tonight's hearing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, in terms of the variances that are being requested, if we look at the existing garage, it is fairly close to Walnut Street, is it not?
It is.
All right. And because that is a rear yard, we are required to have a structure that is 20 feet from Walnut Street.
Yes.
And essentially, that structure has existed there for a long-standing period of time, and it is 4 feet from Walnut Street, is it not?
I believe so.
All right.
And it's actually set back probably 2 feet further back than the existing loft house.
Okay. But the application indicates that we are requesting a 4-foot rear yard setback when a 20-foot rear yard setback is required. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
All right. Then from the side yard, if we look to the left-hand side of the picture, from the existing garage, which would be to the western side, it requires a 15 feet side yard setback, does it not?
Yes.
And we are proposing 10 feet because the existing structure is existing at that location.
Yes.
And that is the second dimensional variance that we are requesting.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit E. We won't go through all of these because the board's going to have a fairly long night tonight, but these are aerials and photographs of the subject property. So let's go to picture number 1. And did I put numbers at the bottom of each one of your, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're there.
All right. Let's go to the bottom of picture number 1. And excuse me, if we go to picture number 1, this is an aerial of the subject property and also the building that is currently proposed to have the food co-op and I think 40 plus apartments, is it not?
Yes.
All right. As we're looking at that photograph, there is a building to the middle and slightly to the right that looks like an orange brick. Look at my exhibit here. Okay. That is the main dwelling that we are talking about that is housing 1 unit, correct?
It is.
All right. To the rear of that, there is the number 244 that seems to set on top of a 1-story addition to that single-family dwelling. And that is the location of the second dwelling. Is that correct?
It is.
All right. And then as we're looking at the photograph on the left-hand side from Walnut Street, that is the carriage house that was converted into a 3rd dwelling unit.
Yes.
And that is on the left-hand side of the driveway.
Yes.
If we look to the right-hand side of the driveway, there's a structure that is 2 stories on one side and then 1 story on the right-hand side with the designation 242. The 2-story structure houses the 4th dwelling unit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the 3-car garage, which is identified with the number 242, is the structure that you would like to convert to 2 additional residential units.
That's correct.
I believe picture 2 is identical to 1, so I apologize for that. If we go to photograph 3, this aerial gives us a better idea of the parking area that you referenced. And there appears to be an area of pavement that is between the various buildings, and that is the area that is housing the required 9 parking spaces. Is that correct?
Correct.
And again, as we look down to the bottom of the picture, the bottom right-hand side, the structure that's identified with the 242 on top of it is the subject of tonight's hearing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. If we go to photograph number 4, is this the driveway that accesses the property off of Walnut Street?
That is correct.
To the left would be the carriage house,
Yes.
and to the right would be the 2-story structure with 1 dwelling, and then the garage would be to the right of that.
Yes.
All right. If we go to photograph 5, to the left-hand side, it shows an almost complete structure. Would you identify to the board members what that structure is to the left of the photograph?
The Bethlehem Co-op with the 40+ apartments.
All right. And do you know whether or not they've started to lease out those apartments?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. And to the right of that photograph is the garage that we are talking about tonight, is it not?
Yes.
And if you look between the telephone pole and the right-hand side of that garage, there appears to be a paved area.
Yes.
Is that the 10th parking space,
That is.
off-street parking space that you indicated is being provided with this application?
That is.
Right. I apologize. Photograph 6 looks to be identical to the one that we just went through, so I'll skip over photograph 7, which again just shows the driveway access to the property. Photograph 8. This depicts certain buildings that are to the east of the subject property, correct? As you're traveling eastbound on East Walnut Street. And it depicts a building to the left-hand side with multiple garbage cans, and it depicts a building to the right-hand side. Would you identify for the board what number of units, or to the best of your knowledge, what those properties are used for?
Multi-family buildings, I believe there's a 6-unit and a 12-unit there.
And so one of the factors in consideration of a variance is that the application is consistent with the character of the neighborhood, correct?
It is. Yeah.
And directly across the street from this property is where 40+ apartments have recently been constructed and will be occupied shortly. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And then to the east of this property are a number of structures which house multiple apartment units. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Photograph number 9 now is looking westbound on East Walnut Street. And again, that's just depicting the structure that is currently being constructed at that location. Is that correct?
Yes.
Photograph number 10 just depicts the carriage house, I believe, on the left-hand side, the driveway, and again, the 2-story structure that's attached to the 3-car garage.
Correct.
Photograph 11 just showing how close the parking area for the apartments that are being constructed to the north of East Walnut Street are located to the structure that's the subject of this application.
Correct.
Number 12 is looking westbound down East Walnut Street from your property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And finally, photograph 13 is a close-up of the building that resulted in this being an application for a multifamily dwelling. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Because the 2-story structure that is located on the left-hand side has 1 dwelling unit in it currently. And the application tonight is to convert this 3-car garage into 2 dwelling units, thereby making the structure a 3-unit dwelling. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If we go to Exhibit F, the renderings. Now explain to the board members what your plan is with the 3-car garage.
So we're going to take the roof off and basically go up 1 level with it. There'll be a set of stairs going up to the second story. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, about 710 square feet.
Okay, so the proposal is to have a first floor unit that's approximately 710 square feet with 1 bedroom and 1 bath, and a second floor unit that is approximately 710 square feet with 1 bedroom and 1 bath. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is this essentially what the exterior of the property will look like?
Yes, this is standing in the parking lot looking at the building.
All right, so this is the portion of the building that's going to be facing Market Street or southbound.
Correct.
All right. And if we go to the next page, is this a rendering of the building as it will face East Walnut Street?
Yes.
And I see to the bottom right-hand corner of that, there is a door. And where will that door lead you to?
That door will take you to the second floor.
All right. And where will the door for the first floor apartment be located?
It's the 5-foot sliding door.
All right. And
In
if
the
we
left-
go
left corner.
to the first rendering on the left-hand side, is that the entrance? So each unit will have a separate entrance.
That's correct.
We go to the third page. Again, this is just, I think, a hand-drawn layout of what the units are going to look like, correct?
Yes.
Full kitchens,
Correct.
full 1 bathroom,
Correct.
1 bedroom,
Correct.
living area,
Yes.
and each will be the same, both the first floor and the second floor. Is that correct?
Roughly for the most part.
And roughly 710 square feet.
Correct.
And the last page would be the drawing of the second floor. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any substantial differences between the first and second floor?
Not really, no.
Lastly, I'd like to take you to Exhibit G. I didn't place this in the package for the board members. I just had a copy of it in my file. This is Article 1304, page 29 of the City of Bethlehem zoning ordinance, and it indicates it is the table of permitted uses. And would you agree with me that a multifamily dwelling is permitted by right in the RT residential district in the City of Bethlehem?
That's correct.
Call your attention now to Exhibit G. And if you will, I'd like to go to the second page first, which is page 16 of the zoning ordinance, and look at the definition of a non-conforming structure. And once I read it, will you acknowledge that I read it verbatim from the ordinance?
Yes.
A structure lawfully existing at the effective date of this ordinance or any amendment thereto, affecting such structure which does not conform to the building regulations for the district in which it is situated. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Right. First of all, you have not received any notices that this structure that we are here for this evening is in any way in violation of any other ordinances of the City of Bethlehem.
No.
And it's your understanding that this structure has existed at this location for a long-standing period of time.
Yes.
And so in your opinion, would the building that is the subject of this proceeding this evening be considered a non-conforming structure under the City of Bethlehem zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Now, if we may go to the first page of Exhibit G. And this is regarding Article 1323 regarding nonconformities. And I'd like to read into the record section 1323.03, which is entitled Continuation. The lawful use of any building, any structure, or the lawful use of any land existing at the effective date of this ordinance may be continued, although such structure or use does not conform with the provisions of this ordinance, except as otherwise provided in this article. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
In your opinion, does this structure with a side yard setback and a rear yard setback requiring a variance, to the best of your knowledge, conform with all other ordinances of the City of Bethlehem?
Yes.
And would you agree that this building was in effect since 1898, essentially, at that location, as the Northampton County records have indicated, and therefore was in existence at the time the City of Bethlehem ordinance was adopted?
I believe so.
To the best of
yes.
your knowledge.
Yes.
Now, based on where the property is located, it is not possible to acquire additional real estate to the north of the property, which is East Walnut Street, to comply with the 20-foot rear yard setback.
That's correct because it's a road.
Okay. And to the west of the property, that is another lot, is it not?
That's correct.
And so therefore, you cannot acquire any additional property to the west of the property to comply with the 15-yard side yard setback when in fact we have 10 feet. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, this application, which will essentially result in 6 units on this property, in your opinion, is this consistent with the character of the neighborhood?
It is.
In fact, right across the street are 40-some units, correct? 40-plus units?
Yes.
And there are other multi-unit buildings in close proximity to the structure.
Yes, correct.
You essentially did not create this hardship. This structure was in existence at this location at the time the applicant purchased the property, correct?
Correct.
And in your opinion, is this the minimum relief that's necessary under the ordinance in that we can't acquire any additional lands to conform or comply with the ordinance requirements?
That's correct.
That's all I have for the witness.
Questions from the board?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So are you taking this garage down, like just demoing the whole garage?
No, I'm going to tear off the roof.
Okay. And is this going to change the current function of, I understand this might be outside the purview of the board, but
Okay.
the current, the attached dwelling, is it going to change that dwelling on the exterior at all?
No.
And I also understand that this board does not consider HARB or anything else, but I would like to understand the process because this is in the historic district. So you will be going before HARB and they will be commenting upon the building that you are going to propose. And I am assuming you will be following HARB's recommendations in terms of fitting in the character of the neighborhood, because honestly, it's not that, I mean, for the board's purposes, I understand why the apartment building is brought up, but really this is in the historic district. And what HARB is going to comment on is how is this building going to relate to other buildings of its kind in the historic district?
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that we're aware of the important nature of doing this type of development in the
Yes, we
historic
had to
district.
do that with the loft apartment back in 2022. I think we got their relief in 2018.
Okay, and that's the, when you refer to the loft, is that the one with the observatory thing on it? Is that an observatory?
It is.
Okay, that's interesting. Those are my 2 questions. I just wanted to understand the process. Thank you.
I said one question, sorry. The existing area of that building, is it greater or less than 1,000? You know?
The 3-car garage itself, not including?
No,
the-
including the whole building, right, because it's attached to the
Yeah.
loft house.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
well bigger than
Yeah.
1,000 square feet, I believe.
It's over than 1,000.
Yes.
Okay. I was guessing by the dimensions it probably
Thank you.
was. Okay.
You said you're only tearing the roof off and you're going to go up,
Correct.
so you're keeping the walls.
Yes.
All right. I did notice that your power meter's on the one side of that building, so it would,
The parking
I
lot
guess-
side, I believe.
I guess, confirm that you instead of buying land, it would be not practical to shorten your building.
I mean, that would require taking another wall down.
Yeah, and moving your
And the
foundations and
foundation,
moving the
too.
meter.
Yes.
We're talking about a rear yard setback, but really, do you anticipate these people that are on or living in this building considering Walnut their street?
I mean, I would think so. I mean, what are all the addresses? Are all the addresses of Market Street addresses that are currently there for the 4 units?
No, so it's, I mean, for tax purposes, yes, it's 241 East Market, but then in the back, the 1-bedroom, the carriage house, and the loft, they're all numbered, and garbage picks up as Walnut Street. So it's like 242, 244. I think 243 is in there as well.
And then just to confirm, the front yard setback in the RT district, I think is that 0 feet?
That is 0 feet, yes.
So
I would have liked to have argued that, but I can't have 2 front yards. Unless I'm a corner lot.
That was all,
Yeah.
there's been discussions.
But essentially,
Yeah.
if you go down Walnut Street, some of these
Right on.
residences are
Right on.
right up on the street. Also to the in this photo to the right, where you only have the 10 feet. Is there any kind of buffer that's existing there now?
There's some neighbors' trees there. Yes.
And I guess the space directly right to the right of directly next to your property, do they use that as parking? Like, is there a fence along, or I guess that's like a,
It's like a little
Hedgerow.
wall. It drops off right there.
but there's no neighbors.
Directly to the right, no.
All right. Guess that's all I had. Does anybody else have questions?
I just had a quick question about Walnut is like the same, even though Walnut isn't really a street where there are front yards and houses on it, we still enact that. I thought there were some alleys that did not have to have the setbacks as defined because it wasn't. I guess I'm not really
Like alley houses
articulate.
you're
Yeah,
talking
it's
about?
like alley houses. Is this considered an alley house?
It is not. It is by definition in the zoning ordinance. It is a building that contains 3 dwelling units, and by definition, it is a multifamily dwelling.
Okay. So it's not about the character of the street that it's on. It's really about the buildings themselves.
It is yes, it's about the building themselves, and there was discussion and analysis of the frontage of the lot, and the lot fronts on Market Street,
Mhm.
and the rear yard and rear access is on
Okay.
Walnut, which is defined an alley. Yes.
Okay. I think I understand. That's all I have. Thank you.
So really, and you're just asking for 2-dimensional variances?
Yes. The side yard and the rear yard.
And the rear yard was actually granted in 2018
Yes.
because, right?
other building.
So the
Which is
the
closer.
loft house required the same relief
Yes.
in 2018. Okay.
And again, that's why you have provisions in the ordinance regarding the non-conforming structures, right? Because there's nothing we can do with them. They are where they are.
Anybody from the audience?
All right. We just need to, we'll admit A through G.
Yeah, I was just going to request it. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Beat me to the punch.
All right. At this time, we'll go off the record and into executive session.
Microphones are back.
In this building, two additional units, right? Just to clear, it's 3 units in this building, 2 additional units.
Correct.
710 and 710 square
Correct.
feet, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's 2 additional.
All right, we'll go back on the record. Can I ask a member of the board to make a motion?
I'd like to motion to grant the dimensional variance to allow 2 additional units, subject to the condition that that you comply with the recommendations made by HARB.
I'll second.
Mr. Schneck,
Yes.
Dr. Van Wert,
Yes.
Ms. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Wiles Young.
Yes.
Thank you. for your
Granted
time.
4-0,
Good to see
you'll
you.
get a written decision.
Take care. Thank you, everybody.
This was only one person left.
Sorry.
Sure. In the crowd, are you participating?
Okay.
Here, all
So we
right.
have nobody left but the applicant.
Ready?
We've had worse, but,
Yeah.
but,
Punishing me for McDonald's hearing I couldn't.
nah. I don't
Thank
have
you.
the stomach to do that to other people.
Thank you.
You may not have the same board I have.
I'm teasing you.
330 East 4th Street, the appeal of, and I apologize if I'm not saying this correctly, Nicholas Yusuf for dimensional variances to permit constructing a 3-story, 4 residential unit with 1 commercial space, multifamily dwelling. Lot area 9,000 square feet required, 7,183 square feet existing. Lot width 90 feet required, 40 feet existing. Front yard setback 10 feet required, 0 feet proposed. And a side yard setback of 15 feet required, 4 feet proposed on the west side and 1 foot proposed on the east side. Additional special exception to reduced parking requirements is sought. 19 spots total are required, 6 residential and 13 commercial spots proposed. Section 130601A4, 130601B 2A, 131902B2, 132506, 132507, and all associated variances, special exceptions, and interpretations.
Can you confirm when the property was posted?
With permission, Mr. Youssef, we have an engineer here who's going to do most of the testifying. Can I have Mr. Youssef just testify to that one issue?
He can just answer. We don't even. Okay. And I drive by anyway, so I know everybody was posted tonight. So I've never caught anybody lying about it either. So honest citizens.
All right, you can proceed.
Ready to go? All right. I am going to have our engineer testify as to the nature of the property. And for Dr. Van Wert, this was already before the HARB board for destruction. So that will be addressed as well. So could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph Renko, JOSEPHRENTKO,
And where are you employed?
Black Forest Engineering.
And what is your position there?
I'm the principal engineer there.
Okay. And what is your connection to the proposed project located at 330 East 4th Street, Bethlehem?
My company did the property, the boundary survey, topographic survey, and then also I prepared we sort of moved full steam ahead and we prepared a land development submission. And then some of the zoning issues were brought up by the zoning officer, and that's why we're here before you tonight.
Okay. And you're here on behalf of Mr. Youssef?
Yes.
Okay. And you're here with his permission?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please tell us what zoning district this subject property is located within?
Sure. The project is actually in a CL district, and we're proposing a commercial use on the downstairs floor, on the first floor. There's 2 additional upstairs, or second and a third floor. Those would have apartments in them. So in this district, if you have a residential use in the CL district, it refers you back to the RT criteria, dimensional criteria. So that's where some of the, I guess the error on my part was when I prepared the land development plan, I tried to be really positive for the applicant, and I basically built the setbacks and the dimensional requirements based on just the commercial, since we have a commercial downstairs. But it's those upstairs apartments that trigger us into having the higher dimensional restrictions.
Okay. And could you please explain what the current usage and dimensions for the subject property are?
The current property is basically a dilapidated single family dwelling it's a 40-foot lot width by say 180 feet deep lot depth. There's quite a big garage in the back on, we'll call it on the corner of Polk and Morton Street. I think the garage is also sort of kind of fallen down. If you kind of get in the alley, you could see pictures of that, what that looks like. But the applicant had purchased this property, and I don't know if there actually was an intent on what they were going to ultimately do with it, but they had secured a structural engineer to come in and take a look at the building inside, and there were significant cracks found in the foundation, some of the wood and the brick. Well, the wood is starting to rot. The brick is cracked, and the structural engineer prepared a report saying that the building is essentially not salvageable.
Okay. And were you involved in the preparation of the application?
I assisted the attorney, or the applicant's attorney.
Okay. And prior to submitting this application, did the applicant obtain approval from HARB for this proposed plan?
So we were before the HARB committee twice. We obtained approval for the demolition of this building based on all the evidence that was provided, which was, like I said, the structural engineer's report, the feasibility to try to salvage the building. HARB does things separately, so there's 2 approvals. There's a demolition approval, but then there's also an approval for what you're going to put in its place. However, HARB, to get the demolition approval, HARB wanted to see that we actually had an idea and a plan in place. So they did review our preliminary architectural plans.
Okay. And those preliminary architectural plans are shown on the screen right now?
Correct, I believe so.
Okay. Could you please describe what the buildings are going to look like and what the conformities with respect to the neighborhood?
So the buildings will look traditionally like a historic masonry building. That would definitely, in my opinion, fit in with the neighborhood. There is a commercial, as I mentioned, there's a commercial unit on the downstairs, and that's something that HARB was actually, I believe, had interest in. I made jotted a quick list here, and I know everybody probably doesn't want me to talk too much. So I'll try to go quick, but to the left of this property, there's a commercial building. To the exact right of the building, there's a twin. Then there's a twin structure that has half commercial, half residential. There's another twin building that's half commercial, half residential. And then there's a commercial building and then a church. And then across the street from us, there's a vacant lot directly across 4th Street. There's 2 commercial properties adjacent to each other. There's a vacant tract, and then there's a residential twin. So, I mean, we have a perfect fit here. We're a combination of everything that's around us.
Okay. Now, with respect to the building itself that exists currently, are there existing nonconformities on that property?
The dimensional requirements, as I mentioned, are different because it's a single family dwelling. However, the building does not even comply right now with the 4-foot setback that would be required for a residential dwelling. The property that's to the right of the photo that you're looking at, it's the only adjoining actual structure. We actually encroach. We're maybe between 2 and 3 feet from the property line right now. The plan is the building that would be replaced would be a foot further away from that existing structure. And then also it's pushed further back from 4th Street in order to provide, and this was raised by the zoning officer during his review, it pushes the building outside of the clear sight triangle, which is obviously a safety issue. The original location, we had it a little bit closer to 4th Street, but we absolutely agree that moving it back was a priority, and that's sort of what the plan that's before you tonight shows.
Now, with respect to the proposed plan, the usage we're requesting is permitted within the CL zoning district, correct?
Yes, multifamily is a permitted use in this district.
So the only relief we're seeking is dimensional.
Correct.
Okay. And most of those dimensional variances are solely to alleviate financial costs associated with removing the existing structure?
There was definitely an unforeseen cost with the condition of that existing house and having to remove that and the garage.
So with respect to the submitted plan, we're only seeking 3-dimensional variances, correct?
Essentially, yes. Lot width, lot area, and then setbacks.
Okay. And the lot width and lot area are existing nonconformities?
They're existing nonconformities for multifamily.
Okay. Now, can you please explain to the board why we're seeking these dimensional variances and why they're necessary under the zoning ordinance?
Well, again, not to beat a dead horse, but the permitted use is the multifamily, and that's really what we think best fits the neighborhood. We're able to provide adequate parking, which I know is a problem in the city of Bethlehem. A lot of places don't have that, and they would be here asking for some parking relief. But instead of making that building skinnier and longer to maybe comply with that 10-foot setback, we could maybe make the building longer, but then we're going to basically we'd eat into the areas that we reserve for parking. And we know how important parking is. And then unfortunately, there's really nothing that from an engineering standpoint that I could do. The lot area is the lot area. It can't grow to that 9,000. So we're deficient there. And the lot width is 40 feet. So there's no way to comply and hit 90 feet unless we're able to buy the adjoining properties building and tear it down, which obviously isn't feasible.
So you touched on the parking issue, and we have included a request for a special exception with respect to the parking on this property. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. Now, the reason we're requesting that is solely because of the way the zoning ordinance is written with respect to the proposed commercial usage of the property. Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure what we're asking for with the special exception, but I'll explain to the board. We have the 6 spaces for the residential units. We're providing 2 additional spaces for that downstairs commercial space. We don't know what it is. So what I envisioned is if this were to be approved and the applicant were to move forward and ultimately get a tenant for that commercial space, if the commercial space, if the 2 spaces is not adequate for it, we'd either unfortunately be back here for a parking relief, or what we really want to do is pursue to rent an offsite space.
So to be clear, this is more of a protective measure with respect to the parking special exception.
It's just good foresight and planning, yes.
And mostly because we're simply not sure what the exact commercial usage will be on the bottom parcel or on the bottom unit.
Yes, no tenant yet.
And I believe if it could be up to 200 spaces according to our original analysis if we had some odd usage on the first floor.
I honestly don't know where that came from.
Oh, okay. But could you describe, you had already done this, do you believe that because of the property's oblong shape and the unique physical circumstances of the property that this is an unnecessary hardship to develop the land?
It's a difficult site just because it's 40 feet and it's 128 feet. So that's, that's over 3 times the lot depth to width ratio. But then also there's essentially, and I'm sure the zoning board is familiar with it, Polk Street has a significant slope across it, a drop from Morton Street down to 4th Street. So it sort of makes the grading pretty tricky on the site. And as far as like how you could potentially develop that property with its length, because the length is where you're climbing grade. So I think it is a definitely unique site. It's a little difficult.
And the applicant did not create any of these physical conditions with respect to the property?
No, the applicant bought it as is.
Okay. And based on your design plan, you believe that this plan will allow for the development of the property in accordance with the essential character of the neighborhood?
I believe so.
All right. And this is due to the fact that there are several similar mixed usages in the adjacent properties?
Yes, as I mentioned.
All right. And could you please explain what those businesses are to the board, like on the just immediate neighboring parcel? The one with respect of the commercial usages.
Just bear with me. Let me pull out my Google Street Views. Which ones were you asking about?
Is there a tattoo parlor there?
There's direct. Do you want to know? Let's start with this.
Okay.
Where would you like me to go? Would you like me to go to the right side of the building?
Why don't you just give us a description of what the businesses are? You don't have to go individually by the buildings. Just what are the local businesses on the?
I see a Touchstone Theater. That takes up a few of the slots across the street. Holy Infancy Gift Shop, although that appears like it may be closed. As I mentioned, further down the block, it's a church. I didn't go west, or I'm sorry, I didn't go east of Polk Street. Let me do that. If you
That's
want this,
okay.
do you want this testimony? I'll do that.
No, it's okay.
All right.
We can move on. But overall, like those are all businesses that usually require walking traffic as opposed to parking traffic, correct?
I mean, I think that's essentially what the historic district is set up for.
And that is the intent of this proposed usage for the property, to have walking businesses, walk-in type business as opposed to parking business?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to circle back, there's directly to the left of the building, there's a laundromat, then there's a barber shop. There's a few other miscellaneous things that I'm not really sure of here.
Well, we can just move on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
And will you be providing any ADA compliant parking spaces based on the recommendations from the city?
Yes, we have one ADA spot. Again, we had it in not the best location in the first submission because, again, it is a tricky site with the slope of the road. But the zoning officer brought that to our attention, which was obviously helpful, and we sort of reconfigured the parking lot, and we were able to basically grade out a 2% spot for the ADA spot itself, and then the appropriate drop off.
Is this proposed parking in accordance with the City of Bethlehem comprehensive plan and consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance, you believe?
I believe so. We're following the ordinance.
Okay. And you believe the proposed parking arrangement to be in the best interest of the City of Bethlehem and is for the public welfare of the community?
We're following their ordinance.
Okay. And due to the location and size of the subject property, you believe that the parking request would be in harmony with the character of the neighborhood?
Yes.
All right. And you also believe that the proposed parking change would be in conformity with the requirements of the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
And would this proposed parking arrangement change the nature and character of the neighborhood?
No, and I'll just expand on it. I think, again, this is just my opinion as a professional engineer. With us taking that garage down, that garage in the back alley, it definitely obstructs the sight distance for people coming out of Morton trying to make a left or a right on the Polk Street. So with us raising that garage and having a flat open parking lot, I think it definitely provides a safer environment for vehicles.
And do you believe that there are adequate safety measures and public conditions to ensure for the protection of the streets from undue congestion based on this plan?
Yes. Yeah. Off-street parking.
All right. And finally, will the proposed usage cause any risk to the public health or safety in the area surrounding the subject property?
Not that I can think of.
That's all I have for this witness.
Any questions?
Yes, I have one question just to clarify. So on the back of the building is where the staircase to get into the units will be on, and that's where the parking will be back there?
The parking is in the rear. There's a separate entrance there for the units. And then in the front, the front is it's a store, like a business storefront. The only access down there is to the business.
To the business. Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions. So just to be picky, this is the South Bethlehem Historic Conservation Commission, HCC, not HARB. Two different entities altogether, just so you know.
I got acronyms mixed up.
Yeah, we just call them HCC, but they are two different bodies altogether. I would have liked to have seen the eastern elevation and the elevation from Morton, what that looks like in the renderings. I'm just letting you know. That helps me because if you look across the street, the way the parking lot for the laundromat is configured, that's not good urban planning. That's a big tooth hole in the streetscape. And so you're asking for two big curb cuts here on a walkable street. So we're introducing, stuff that stops people from feeling comfortable necessarily walking down that sidewalk. So have you thought about ways to maintain a walkable streetscape along, was that Polk?
Yeah.
Yeah, along Polk.
Okay, so it's a great question. One of my only complaints about the layout right now is the two entrances. It was a struggle there's essentially no way to lay this out with one, and the elevation change. There's probably a 3-foot grade change just between that little grass island we're going to have between the two paved parking lots areas. So we're sort of using every nook and cranny we have to sort of make up elevations. As far as walkability, though, and again, I realize it's hard to see, but if we go back to the engineer drawing, you can see some line work. So these are going to be done with the current PennDOT ADA crossover driveway details. So we provide, I think there is a 3-foot completely flat area. So the curb cut, a vehicle has to have essentially 2 feet to make up that 6-inch difference. So the burden is on the vehicle getting into the lot. It's not going to be on the people walking down the street. They still have a flat, like a non-traditional, driveway slope. They have a typical sidewalk that they'll feel like they're walking down. So it's the best. Believe it's the best as it can be.
And we do have a climate action plan, and while I haven't memorized it, that's an awful lot of impervious coverage on a lot. Does this meet the city's requirements? It just seems like we're taking up 95% of the lot.
It does. The RT zoning district allows 100% coverage of
Are we in
impervious.
CL?
CL.
Yeah, the CL, I think the CL is like 80 or 90%. It's a lot. So we're
Yeah.
within that.
That's a lot of drainage. So has there been any consideration for making this a pervious, so that when they're parking, the water goes down through instead of shunts off into the street and into the sewers?
We've floated pervious parking on other sites in the city, and both this city and Allentown, and the engineering department has usually come back with it. It ultimately becomes a maintenance issue. They're never upkept. And then they ultimately become impervious anyway, and almost worse because some of that loose, like top asphalt, always sort of breaks off and then gets into the public storm sewer system.
It's just a lot of big open vacant space. You can see you've got two beautiful pine trees. Is there any thought that they might be conserved within these parking areas?
So with this layout, no, but what you're not seeing is, and I just to remind everyone that if you were so kind to grant us the dimensional relief we need tonight, we do have to continue on through the planning commission, and we're going to have to meet the standards of the city forester, which there's a request for street trees, which our landscape plan does show some of that, but there's low growing bushes and things around, like foundation plants around the building. So there definitely is more that will be done for this plan than what you folks see before you tonight.
Okay. And the whole plan has to go back before HCC for approval because this is in the district.
So I said Harbin, I apologize, but we have our first approval then from HCC, and we'll be going back for the second approval, which is the building. Once again, if we were lucky enough to get our relief tonight.
And the ground floor commercial, the two large pane windows that you're shown, these are fairly firm in your design, so it's going to be reflective of kind of the old-fashioned businesses of yore, when there used to be stuff displayed in the windows. And I know you don't know what the use is going to be right now, so that might dictate that, but that's also going to be covered by HCC as well.
HCC already started to talk about that, and when I said we were there twice, the first time, again, just ask for the demo, they wanted more information, and that more information included some architectural, some ideas of what that facade's going to look like. So HCC is definitely going to drive the bus on what they want that facade to look like.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
As far as your dimensional variances, you said you kind of went forward with your land development plan, assuming that you were meeting the requirements of the CL. So now it seems like there's a little bit of a blend.
So with the so again, I took the freedom of assuming CL because we do have a business use. However, it was brought to our attention, which I don't disagree with. More of the building, a bigger percentage of the building is used as residential for the apartments. So that's why unfortunately I'd love to use the CL district requirements, but we can't. We have to go to RT, and that's again what we're asking for the relief for.
So this might be a question for you, but the front yard setback in the RT district, I believe, is 0, but in the CL it's 10. But is that because CL is on the first floor?
It's, no, I believe it's because it's a 3-story building. In the RT, a 3-story building, it's from the front facade, requires a 10-foot setback.
Hmm.
I don't, it may be by a foot.
Oh, more than 2.5 stories.
But
Yeah, more than 2.5 stories is 10 feet.
So, and that's it. And looking at the front of the building, it's a 3-story building.
Okay.
But David, I know we moved the building back quite a bit to get out of that clear sight triangle.
Yes.
Is that it's the 10 feet on Polk Street you're referring to then?
No, it would be the 10-foot front yard setback would be from,
So we have two front yards. We have 4th Street and we have Polk Street, I guess.
but on a corner lot, you only have one front yard and the owner is able to pick the front yard.
Okay.
And we picked 4.
We picked 4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we don't need the relief for that.
Okay.
So wait, on 4th Street, you're not set back, or you are set back?
Well, I guess I'm just thinking about this. If we're required to have a 10-foot front yard setback because of the height of the building, I think on 4th Street, we do meet the 10-foot now because we moved out of that clear sight triangle. So the only setback we would need, we're really essentially then would be looking for
Side yard.
a side yard on Polk Street and a side yard on against our adjoining neighbor.
And
Does that sound right?
That
Yeah.
is correct.
sorry to speak out of turn. Actually, now that you mentioned that, I do remember looking at that on the plan, and I actually believe I emailed somebody or I reached out, and I might not have gotten a return or I missed it, so I let it go.
All right. So do you agree that we don't need a front yard setback if that is 10 feet or greater on 4th Street?
If that is 10 foot or greater back from the right of way, they would not need that relief.
Okay. Are you 10 feet?
Yes.
Okay. So then let's go to Polk. On Polk, what is required because of this being considered residential, and what have you got?
So if it's a side yard, if we're considering Polk a side yard and
Yeah.
it's a multifamily, it really needs 15 feet, and we have essentially 0.
Okay. And what does the existing building have on that side?
On that side, the existing building is about 5 feet, maybe 5 feet.
Okay. So then it's the interior side where you've got 2 and change, and 5 is now required. And you want 4?
15 would technically, I believe, still be
15 on that side is required.
because of this multifamily.
Gotcha.
So right now it's a single family. It would only require 4, but we don't even have that. So it's an existing nonconformity, but it's essentially it's a little bit tricky because we're changing the use. Again, it's a permitted use that we're changing to, but those uses both have different dimensional requirements.
Your existing garage, though, in the back, it goes from, there's no side, it's 0,
That's an accessory. So the zoning officer I don't know if that actually would need is a nonconformity or.
But
What,
the answer,
this?
Yeah.
answer to your question is, as of now, there is no setback at all for the
Yeah, it's on the
garage.
property lines, correct?
Correct. And that would, if it was a residential accessory structure, would require 2-foot setback for side yards and rear yards.
And we're proposing to demolish that and instead install parking lots, which would give us the additional parking.
And then can you clarify one other thing for me? So I thought I heard someone say the lot width and area is non-conforming. But when I look at the RT district, a single family dwelling is 4,040 feet. So isn't it conforming then?
It is now, so the original plan as submitted was not, but because
Gotcha.
we understood it to be a CL.
Again, it's the same confusion.
But
Yep,
because,
just trying
yeah,
to straighten
because
it
it
out.
was originally thought to be a CL, it is now treated that, so it is conforming to that extent.
Okay, but it would not conform. Okay, so here, I guess here's my question then. If you put a non-residential CL use in the building, would it conform or not?
I didn't. If they put a, if it was just a
You're talking
primary-
about just a straight
primary commercial
straight
building.
Commercial
primary
building.
commercial or straight primary
Right.
residential
It
is
would-
what you're
it-
asking. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, if we were to put a strictly commercial building in there, I think, I'm pretty sure we would comply with the dimensional requirements of the ordinance. And then again, that's kind of, I'll take the blame for that.
No, I'm just trying to find, because the problem has become that it sounds like it was intended to be a repurpose of the building, and then that opportunity went away, and now you've got to do a new building, right? Because you said before he had it
Structurally.
expected to try to use it,
Yeah,
right?
it's structurally unsound, and there's nothing we can,
Okay.
and that's literally why we were before the HTC previously, to get that addressed.
Okay. Because the reason I was asking the question is, if you had been able to repurpose it, you'd have the same exact relief. It's because you've got to unfortunately take this down.
correct.
Yes.
Okay. Because you don't get to keep
We don't get to keep the existing structure, which
Right.
would have granted us what we
Okay.
would have preferred, but we
Gotcha.
have to make
Right.
it work as best we can.
And then you're asking for a special exception to reduce the parking requirements?
To the extent, I will let your solicitor discuss that with you in private, but you have some options on how you wish to deal with that should you move forward with this, because we don't have an exact knowledge of what this particular commercial usage will be on the bottom. We're asking for relief with respect to 2 spaces just to be safe, because that is what we have. And that would be in conformity with a regular type of use there, a regular commercial use, say a retail shop. But that said, we don't know the exact nature of it. Should you find that too speculative, as Mr. Renko said, we would come back for an additional variance if that was so necessary.
So, yeah, if you found a commercial space.
Correct. So you could grant I don't want to speak out of turn as to what your solicitor would tell you, but you could grant the variance as we're requesting it. And then if we required additional relief, we would still have to come back to you to request it.
Yeah, because I guess my only question was, at a space of that size, did you look, is there anything that theoretically doesn't need more than 2 spaces?
Yes.
Oh, what doesn't need more than 2 for that space?
Unfortunately, Mr. Fleischiker prepared that, so I don't remember what exact usage he was.
Is it in his write-up?
It's in his write-up. He said for one of the usages, it could be, I think it was a religious use of some type. It could be up to 200 spaces just because of it.
Well,
which
right,
is
but I guess my question is, if you need 6 for the residential, that leaves you 2.
Correct.
You're going to build a building then that has 1,800 square feet on the first floor? Is that what the number is?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any use that you could put in 1,800 that's not going to require more than 2? That's like, right?
I was going to say, I think it was the possible usage of, it was something that required a kitchen would have required that had like seating for that. So it could require more than 2.
Well, right, but is there
You're
any
saying,
use
is there
that
anything that could be
complies?
less?
That's what
Yes,
I'm saying.
there
Is
is-
there any use
yes,
that
if it was-
complies?
if it was
Because
a
don't we
walk-in,
need to
like-
know that there's at least some opportunity, right?
The answer to that would be if it was I believe it was a straight retail shop, because of the size, it would only need 2 spaces. If I'm correct, Mr.
right?
Taylor.
See, retail called that as a general commercial.
Because I understand the point. If you don't know the use, it's hard to pick.
Right.
But by the same token,
We may need the relief no matter what.
You may need
You're
the
correct.
relief no matter
You're
what.
correct,
Yeah.
but I don't want to. It would have been improper for me to make a representation
Sure.
that I can't.
Indoor retail.
okay.
Parking or storage space for all vehicles used directly in conduct with such business plus 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area.
So we would need it anyway in that scenario.
Yeah, so that might be the closest one that you're too short. Is there public parking in the area?
There is, and we would, should the board require additional spaces, we would possibly be able to rent them. I'm sure we could, any type of reasonable conditions that the board would place on such, we would be able to accommodate.
Yeah, because I'm
And-
thinking, well, let's face it, retail or like a grab and go, is a grab and go permitted on the bottom floor? Like a takeout food
Yeah.
place?
Correct, yes.
You're probably in the range of 4 or something.
Correct.
But you're still short. So the board could attach a condition that says you've got to get those before you get your BP or something.
Before I close testimony, then, Mr. Youssef, would the applicant be amenable to additional conditions that would add additional spaces such as that?
Okay, all right, just
To clear it up, that way you have it on the record.
because I just want to make sure that there's that we don't approve something knowing that you have to get the variance.
Understood.
Right? I think if the parking, you can utilize parking in your count, right? If they show that they've rented.
Oh,
it.
yes.
Yeah, that's allowed in the city.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
And we had anticipated that might have been a condition of it. The problem was with the speculative nature of what is going in there, we didn't know what exact relief we would be requesting.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is there the tree on the corner? I'm just want to save as many trees as possible. There's a tree on the corner. Is that a city street tree that's attached to the house? Right, that one, yeah. Is that a city tree or a you own it tree?
That is a city tree, and we're preserving that tree.
Okay, and the one next to it. Yep. So the
think
only
that's on-
losses really are those pine trees.
I don't think that's our tree though. is it?
No,
It's a city. They're city tree. Those are city street trees.
City
They're in
trees.
they're in the city's right of way.
Okay.
So we wouldn't essentially be able to cut them down anyway.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So this would require 4. Right. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
We'll go that.
Is that,
We got to get.
do you need anybody?
Nope, that is it. We'll
Okay.
close testimony on our side.
All right.
Move for
Uh,
the admission of our exhibits.
Admitted.
All right. We'll go off the record and move into executive session.
Do you want us to leave? It might actually be easier. There's only,
We'll go outside.
okay.
We think.
Phones are back.
All right, we'll go back on the record. One of the board members would like to make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions. For every mature tree cut down, it will be replaced with trees as coordinated by the city arborist, and further conditions as outlined by our solicitor.
Okay, so the parking one is a little complicated.
Understood.
So follow. The board, that space, the board's okay with it being retail, so long as whatever Mr. Taylor says retail requires, that you prove that you rent those spaces. So let's just pick a number. You need 6 for the apartments. If Mr. Taylor says you need 6 more for the retail that's in there, you have to show him you have 6. If the use that goes in there is not retail and requires 6 or less, the board is fine. If you're going to put a use that's more intense than like a street retail, then you'd have to come back to the board to decide whether it would allow that use by the addition of extra parking.
To the extent that it's necessary, Mr. Youssef, you agree to that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It makes sense to everybody.
Yes, it does.
So Dave's going to determine what that space will require. You can do that and anything that's less, but you still got to show him you've got the spaces rented. And then if you put something in that requires 204, you got to come back before that use is allowed.
Did I not? I actually
Yeah.
I told him I had a feeling that's where this was going. I told him to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Okay. So the board good with that?
Yeah.
That's the second condition?
We have to
Perfect.
vote.
A second?
I'll second.
Mr. Schneck,
Yes.
Dr. Van Wert.
Yes.
Miss, had the wrong names. Miss Joseph,
Yes.
Miss Wiles Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank the board. Thank you. Are you off the record?
Yeah.
So can you tell me what happened? I'm actually curious.